Ron. Yeah, it's very decorative. Did you guys get to see the red and the green? Yeah. See, I'm telling you. That's right. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, they're not gonna have any unless somebody comes up with a tree for them.
Boy, Wolfboro didn't hurry. See that?
No,
Wolfboro had no tree and they said, what the blame? Like within 24 hours. You didn't decide this, let's set this thing up, right? The wireless one, the one off the desk down there. Oh, that's for an applicant. I'm sorry.
oh, that's the applicant here.
Yeah. Oh, that's the applicant here. Okay, she won.
All right. Yeah, we'll call this meeting to order at 6:03 PM. I'd like to do a roll call of the board members. Start then. Drew Carter.
Bill O'Neill.
Doug Brown.
Scott Williams.
Roger Sample.
I'm Vivian.
Right.
So we can't see you. Hi.
Yeah, I'm gonna have to take your word for it that you're down there. Let's see, so we don't need any alternates appointed, do we? Board.
We're missing Lee.
Jarvis.
Tonight we're missing Lee Hillsgrove.
Tom's enough.
Yeah, Tom Hoops is an alternate, not able to attend tonight. And Nick, who's our selectman's rep, he's not able to attend and his alternate was not.
Oh,
So you can appoint an alternate to fill in for Lee.
any volunteers down at the end of the table there? All right, Tom has volunteered.
When do these microphones speak?
Say that again?
Yeah. Jessica.
I think.
Sorry,
Do these microphones speak to?
The speakers?
system or just-
they should. Yep. They should go through the speakers.
I think they had it turned down because there was feedback.
I would see why.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Mr. Chair, may I go through some housekeeping rules before you approve the agenda?
Absolutely.
Because it has nothing to do with the agenda.
Okay.
So just so that you all know, as you can see, we changed the meeting room around. So the back table used to have the sign-in sheet, maybe copies of the agenda or meeting materials, and I see that you've found them out in the hallway. So they will be located out at the table in the hallway from now on. And you just have to ensure that you speak into the microphone. Every time you speak, it may be best to address the chair as proper protocol, and then that will cut down on maybe some missed conversations. And then if you talk over each other, you don't get anything. And we'll have the public come up to the table over here and present instead of them being, passing the microphone around throughout the audience.
Okay. All right, any changes to the agenda?
So I do have some changes. Case P 2323 has sent in a request to continue to the December 19th meeting. Case 2325 is requesting to be continued to the January 16th meeting. And down under other business, 3A, case number 2324 has also asked for continuance as they need some ZBA approvals prior to merging the lot together. And I do have an addition to add under 3, so it's 3C. And there's a letter in your packets. It's a letter from Helen Humphrey and family, and it's regarding some stormwater issues off of Coast Lane. Coast Lane, yep. And those are the only changes.
Do we have a date and time specific for 3A? Should we should add that
There
to the
isn't,
date.
that's not, there's no public notice involved with that, so there
Okay.
is no actual
Okay,
date to continue it to, it's just, it's them on their own requesting the continuance.
then, Mr. Chairman, I'll move to accept the agenda for the November 2023 Planning Board as amended.
Okay, do we have a second?
I'll second that.
Seconded by Bill. All those in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Excellent. All right, so first on the agenda is the CIP public hearing, and I guess I gotta read this. So this was public noticed, was sent out. Notice is hereby given of a public hearing to consider the 2024 through 29 CIP plan as proposed by the CIP committee to be held in the Alton Town Hall at 6 p.m. on Tuesday, November 21st, 2023 at the planning board meeting. Copies of the 2024 through 29 plan will be available at the hearing on the town's website at www.alton.nh.gov or can be picked up in draft form at the Town Hall Planning Department during regular business hours. So with that taken care of, who is presenting for the CIP?
It appears that there's only Roger here from the CIP committee.
So, Roger, wave your hand, I'll do it.
Didn't
Yeah.
the CIP committee already present last month?
They did, but they did it informally to the board, not as a public hearing, correct?
Right, they passed it off to the planning board. Yep.
So,
Usually there's someone here from the committee. It doesn't necessarily mean you can't move forward if the committee members aren't here, because it's actually your plan, not the committee's plan any longer.
gotcha. All right, so so we did go over this, and have there been any changes since our last view of this? Other than the print
No.
looks larger?
It's as presented as it was last time.
So I do recall there were some questions about the life expectancy on some of this equipment.
Yes, I did talk to Pat O'Brien down at the fire department. And he wanted me to update the ladder truck to 25 years. That is equipment FD6
What was that?
to update the lifespan for FD6, which is a ladder truck, from 20 years to 25 years.
6.
On page 3 of 11.
So that would eliminate the 1.6 million expenditure.
Nope, it's just updating the lifespan of the vehicle.
So in other
That-
words, they won't need
Yeah, so
another 1.6 for 25 years.
Yeah, it'll probably be
Right, till
3.2.
2033.
Truck's already 20 years old.
No, well, no.
No, this is for a brand new
They
one
already
out of
bought
the
it.
box.
They already bought the.
But the used-
Yeah, and the Alton historically, when we bought our 56 Mac, that was used as well. So Alton always has purchased used ladders since we've had a ladder.
So last. Speaking, Mr. Chairman.
Yes, please do.
When last we reviewed this.
Make sure you're talking into a microphone though.
When last we reviewed this last year, I thought we had approved a 750 spend on a ladder truck as well that last year.
There
was that?
was an approval, but I don't know what they did.
I think that was a previous year because that's the one that they have now. This temporary one. Yeah, and I think the selectmen just bought that one. That was.
Yeah, I don't believe that that was listed in the CIP plan.
It was.
It was just a purchase that was made by the select board.
It was listed in the plan that we saw. I forget when it brought it to the. Maybe it was 2 years ago. It might have been. I'm just.
So the new one, so the purchase of a new one has been in the plan, not the purchase of the used one that they that
Right.
they,
So that must have just
Purchase.
shown up in the budget. So that
No,
was-
no, I imagine the fire department had a capital reserve account and they drew it out of the capital reserve stuff. See, because when they do a warrant article, they always do it with the selectmen as agents to expend. That way, with that phrase in there, if they see a deal, they can go grab it.
and buy everything.
They don't have to ask the public for it anymore. And like the old way that was town hall was, town meeting was done, you go talk about it and, but that doesn't happen anymore.
Understood. Then I guess my question maybe is a little different. I've only been involved in town government for 2 years. I know that I saw a document that was very much this. It's maybe a budget that had an line item for 750 grand for a 20-year-old ladder truck. Last year or the year prior. And is this a replacement for that? I guess that's what I'm wondering. Or is this just a second ladder truck?
The
No,
one that they purchased
Replacement.
It's a replacement.
relatively recently is, they took as a stopgap till something else. Which is what you do when you buy a used vehicle. Buy another used vehicle.
So let me, I come back to my question earlier, though, so the 20-year lifespan has been pushed out for 25 years of service, right?
yep, can I finish with that before you guys move on?
Yep.
So the question was, the extension of that lifespan. So that was your question, Drew?
Yes,
I think. So the three items that got extended were FD6. So that went from 20 to 25. FD8, which is the forestry one vehicle, that went from 10 to 15 years. And FD19, which is rescue one, went from 20 to 25. Those were the three.
And that's what they
Suggestions.
traditionally were. When I was there, it was a 25-year lifespan, and then for some reason they reduced it to 20 years. And,
So just the question then, the FD6, it reflects the purchase of a new vehicle in 2028. That reflect the 25-year lifespan, or is that the 20? My way of thinking, if it's expanded to 25, that means it's 2033 before the expenditure needs to happen.
No, that's basically what it is the lifespan of this truck here, that which they bought in 2028 will be
Yeah,
25
now we're gonna
instead
put
of
it right
20.
now, see.
Right again?
So the expand, when they buy this new ladder truck,
Right.
that truck will be good for.
Oh,
20
they're saying that that
From
was
that
it.
point,
Instead of,
Uh,
when they take
All
the-
right, I got you. Okay.
So would it, Chairman, if I could, would their question be to ask, when was the last one bought? Expand on that, because I thought we
What's the current, when was the current ladder purchase, Pat? When was the current ladder purchase?
Okay, so can I just interrupt for a second?
Yeah.
So none of that of what you're talking is going to be recorded.
yeah, so,
If we can just have people come up to
yeah,
the microphone.
you gotta talk into the microphone, otherwise there's a big blank area on the recording.
Pat O'Brien,
Thank you.
Captain Alton Fire Department.
Thanks.
And can you answer that again?
Sorry, what was the question? Just for
What
clarity.
year was the current ladder purchase?
So it was purchased in 2021 for the sum of $75,000.
75.
Correct.
Right.
Oh, I thought it was 750.
Negative.
That's, no, because it was listed on a prior document, so
Yeah, 750 was the original purchase price that we were looking at in 2018.
perfect. Thank you, sir.
Things
Sure thing.
changed.
Much,
Very much so.
yeah, I much appreciate that. Thanks. Solves my problem.
So in fact, just so you'll know, we just went over what's 25 years and what's not.
Sure, yeah, I did. I had sent Jessica an email to try and iron out some of that stuff, so.
So Jessica, have the dates of the year proposed project equipment replacement, has that been changed?
So FD6, I need to change that from 2026 to 2028 because it originally was under 2026 and we pushed that out a little bit. So that I need to fix.
Flex 2028 now.
It does.
In the column under year of proposed project or equipment replacement.
Oh.
Says 26. I
Yep, okay.
just need to update
It
that.
does out further though.
Correct.
Yep.
Right.
What else are we talking about?
So I also recall there was a lot of discussion about the highway department equipment.
7 years out of an excavator. I'd love to have something that new.
Chairman, was part of the question whether or not it made sense. Thank you.
Yeah, and I think that is certainly a worthwhile discussion point. I don't know if CIP committee discussed it at all, but no, I don't know how often how often we have a call for some of this equipment, whether it sits idle for long periods of time and then all of a sudden we have a use for it for a week or 2 weeks or 3 weeks, and we all know that equipment that sits idle tends to have problems.
Yep, but also. Advocate, you have a weather event, which let's say an excavator is needed. Turn it back in and back till April 1st, let's say, or something like that, we don't have an excavator. So there's a toss around that that the public needs to wrestle with.
Yeah.
Mr. Chairman, that, and I think they got rid of the large excavator.
Yes, they did.
We now have a smaller one. They use that all year round. They're doing ditching with it right now. So as far as the excavator, I don't know as though renting one when you need one is the way to go for that.
Yeah, I don't
But I-
think
but I
the
think they-
excavator is what I had in mind for a particular piece of equipment. I was looking at like the high pack roller. For instance.
Yeah.
Yeah,
But
they're-
I think Rich was thinking more of leasing, not renting.
Yeah, perhaps.
Leasing's gonna take on a whole new price range with this current interest.
Cost of
rates.
capital.
Big time. And I really, and I've preached this all along, town needs to set up their capital reserves and fund them. So come time to purchase one of these vehicles, we have the money to buy it. We bond schools, town halls, fire stations, things of that nature. These things are consumable equipment. And they shouldn't be financed out and cost the taxpayer money, but we should have the money. Always used to be. Get away from it.
So let me ask you guys who were more in the dirt business, but the backhoe 7-year lifespan, is that typical?
No,
Seems a little light to me, but
I'm running a 2004, I think. Oh, it's 19 years old. Pretty as it once was.
Seems to me the criteria should be more on engine hours than projections on
Yep.
number of years.
The thing about it is the backhoe can go out and move snow. If they have something coming in that they have to open the ditch line, things like that. Backhoe can do that just like a loader can. So, in a 580 style backhoe is probably the staple of much everybody's highway department.
yeah,
Pretty useful machine.
yeah, it's very versatile. There's no
Yep.
question about it, but I just see 7 years, it seems like a very short period of time to cycle through
I would agree.
equipment. But on the other hand, I also can recognize that this helps to keep those coffers built up so that when there's that emergency, there is some reserve in there that you could draw from.
And plus you have a little bit more value of a vehicle if you trade it in at 7 years old or you do it 20 years old. So that's another factor.
Yeah.
Chairman,
Yes, sir.
isn't this the public hearing?
Yes, it is. And, I wanted to get through any of the discussion points that this board had that, let me talk into my microphone, that we may have discussed last time to see where those went.
Okay.
And to kind of get anybody else in the public who wasn't here up to speed as well. So, but yes, by all means, if the board feels like we've covered everything that the board was concerned about, then we move on.
There's one more thing, statement I'd like to say as well, that the public, when they watch this, if they fund this entire capital improvement plan for this year, as the representative said, a $350,000 house, you'd see about $350 increase in your tax rate. And this is scheduled out for the next 7 years. So take that 350 and multiply it by 7, and that's what your tax bill is going to look like in 7 years. So if you have a $700,000 house, you're going to pay $700 a year times the 7. These are real dollars, and I think the public really needs to look at this stuff and make educated decisions on what this town needs. And I also would recommend that the town stop the selectmen agents to expend. That way they can keep a thumb on what's going on. My personal opinion.
Excellent point. Hey, does
Where does
anybody,
that point go from here?
was
Public
that-
gets to talk about it now.
yeah, does anybody from the public want to speak to?
Lauren Carr. Um, on 4/3/23, the select board had the fire department come in and talk about the elephant in the room, which of course is that fire truck for 1.6
Ladder.
million. Interesting facts, if you look at that video, it was 1.2 million in the CIP, and it was going to come up in 2026. It's now 1.6 2028. So that's how much that's jumped 2 years. It also came up that they asked about how much it went up in the last quarter price from what they were quoted and what they were then quoted later. January 20th, I guess they got a number of 1.4 million. Now, in the quarter, it had gone up to 1.58, $44,000 increase in that ladder truck in 1 quarter. That tells you how much it's jumping up. They also asked about the yearly increase, and that was about $300,000 over a year. So I don't really believe 1.6 is going to hold. Ending in 2028. I mean, if this is any indication of how much this is jumping, this ladder truck, I guess if we had hindsight, we would have got the ladder truck and held off on the fire truck we're going to get next few months, but we didn't have the foresight. But anyway, I don't really think that 1.6 is 228 from what fire department presented. That's just one thing. Now the select board paid $35,000 for a fire department new article
Study.
from this company, right? Dynamix. I don't know if you've seen it on the website. They paid $35,000 for this evaluation of the fire department. And very interesting about the apparatus replacement on this article, because exactly what you people were saying is what's in this, on these pages. And I would ask you to perhaps read this because it really is backing up what you're saying. They also do a little chart. And Doug, you mentioned it. It has a annual cost. It has the ownership cost, operating and maintenance, and the total cost, and optimum replacement age. So it does a chart where it shows you where you come into the sweet spot of owning a piece of equipment. So it's a very good article on here. It's excellent. And then also they break it down to an point assignment criteria, they call it. 1 point for every year, 1 point for every 10,000 miles. So you're talking about the
Hours.
backhoe, that would, service, excuse me. This is a ladder truck, but of course it would apply for all equipment.
Sure.
The condition, reliability, and it gives points and it numbers it down. And we talked about this last year. Matter of fact, you made a motion that selectmen ought to review. Unfortunately, it didn't get put in this article. But I'd ask you, I guess you've got to accept this tonight, but it would be great if this was included as part of the CIP program. Because it doesn't have to be a chart, it can be a written addition to this. Boy, these desks are so short, everything. Did you write that
Speak
letter?
that into the microphone, please.
Okay, so anyway, I think that would be excellent and it would back up what you're saying tonight. Of course, I would have to pay for 10 copies, so I didn't do it.
So has anything to your knowledge happened with that study or not? Or is it just,
I think they just got it. It's on the web page.
Okay.
It's quite a lot.
because procedurally, it strikes me that somehow there should be some type of process behind determining when replacement value makes sense in terms of actual life expectancy of the equipment.
Yeah, and I think, I don't want to speak for the departments, but I think a lot of them are putting into this plan is kind of, and this is not required. This doesn't mean that this year we must buy that piece of
It's a
equipment.
placeholder, I
But
understand.
I think a lot of them are kind of predicting based on their experience perhaps with the equipment. And some of it may be wish listing as well. But yes, I think, the document like that with showing, that sweet spot for the trade-in to get the new piece of equipment is under particular conditions and circumstances and how well we take care of our equipment, how often it's used and that sort of thing. It's a lot to do with the value after that period of time. But having something that at least is kind of a guide makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
So,
And another part of this committee's charge is to take the spikes out of the proposed tax rate so they can have it more linear as it goes along. So, things aren't up bad. Let's say things don't jump out of sight when we need a $1.6 million ladder truck. They equalize it. So that's an important feature of this.
I think why I'm bringing this up is I think it would be a good idea that recommendation to the select board that they ought to review this and go through this idea about giving it a points before, okay, it's this year and it's time to get a pickup truck, even though it's got 10,000 miles on it.
Exactly.
We're getting to that point, I think. So I think this would be a good addition, addendum or something you want to put on your chat. So that would be my input on that. And it certainly backs up what your people are saying. So
Excuse me. The only problem I have with that costs $35,000. You want to spend $35,000 to find out if a pickup's any good?
no, they could do this. They could do this
internally.
internally.
I think
Yeah, you know,
the
they
outline
have
is
an
there. I
outline.
think that's what he's.
Yeah, you just go down, you say, okay, how many years? That's a point. What service is done? That's a point, that's a point, that's a point. You just,
So what are you gotta have someone smart enough to know what the points mean.
pardon me?
They gotta be smart enough to know what the points mean. What the hell good's a point?
Point is, I think what we've gotten to the point now is we don't look at the vehicle. when we replace it anymore.
No,
We
I,
say
no, I'm
it's-
I'm getting that, but I'm just wondering if they could utilize that. I'm just saying they should take this and they should use this.
No.
I think if you gave them to it, they wouldn't know what to do with it.
Oh, I think they're smarter than that.
Which one?
I don't think that's a problem at all. I think they can look at a piece of it. They don't even look at a piece of it now, Roger. They don't even look at them. They say, oh, here it is. It's this year. Oh, we got to replace it.
You have representative from the fire department here to respond. potentially.
Yeah, yeah.
Oh, it's the selectmen I'm talking about.
Yeah, but in terms of the study and using it,
Yeah.
shaking his head in the back of the room.
So,
But the selectmen are the ones, the selectmen are the ones that say, yeah, we're gonna replace it or not. They should look at the equipment. They should evaluate it. Not just, okay, it's up this year, it's time to change it. If it's, this,
that
we
correct?
replaced a truck with 70,000 miles on it. I think that was ridiculous. Really. I think it's time to
Yep.
look at these things instead of just,
well,
oh, here it's on the paper and we gotta replace it.
so
That's my point.
I don't, the selectmen don't unilaterally make a decision to replace a vehicle. They've got a department head who
Mhm.
is coming to them saying, explaining why they think it's appropriate to replace that piece of equipment.
Mhm.
And, you know, we all know that a 70,000 mile truck could be good for another 70, 80,000 miles, or it could have a blown transmission and cost you more to fix it than to replace it,
Yes, and it should.
or
be-
at least be darn close.
Right, and so you evaluate that, not just say, oh, 2026, we gotta replace it.
Right.
It's
but
gotta
I'm
be, I'm
using
saying-
that argument now, using that argument, you can't just go by a chart that says it doesn't have enough points accumulated yet, so we can't replace it, even though it's got a blown transmission in the yard and, you know,
Oh, yeah, that would be the points.
yeah.
The points would say it's not reliable. So it would be out.
But
As a
I
matter of
think it's
fact,
a
if you use
valid
this-
Point that, you bring some process to this instead of just arbitrarily saying 10 years or 20 years. in certain
Yes.
points.
And I guess I want to make sure that everybody understands, at least as I understand it, that this is not saying that in 10 years you need to replace a certain vehicle. What it's saying is that its life expectancy is 10 years. If they can get 12, 14, 18 bonus, I don't think the departments are looking this as a carte blanche saying, great, that vehicle's 10 years old, I get a new one.
I think this is mainly a tool for dollars and cents, not worthiness of the vehicle. Because they estimate these things to have this life. You know, if the points are involved, and I haven't read that, and I will. If that says, okay, maybe we should get rid of this thing because we have the best trade-in value after 10 years. And that might behoove us to move at that point, but I don't think the selectmen in general are capable of that, but if they follow the point system, then I think that maybe it can guide them,
Exactly.
so.
Oh, I get it. And you bring up an excellent point that, you know, I'm deviating from the point you made earlier, which is that the intent of this is to take the highs and lows out of the tax.
Exactly.
And to take those spikes away.
Yep.
And that's what a lot of this prediction is all about,
Yep.
you know, over the next, 5 years. I guess I'm a little disappointed to see that the bottom dollar is over $1.
But traditionally, people, year after year after year, they just like to check yes. And they're gonna pay the piper. I mean, it's just dollars and cents. You want all this stuff? You gotta pay for it. Plain and simple. If you want your taxes to go up, way the schedules does it, that's what you get.
So Lauren, getting back to this point system, can we instruct or tell the select board they should implement this system?
No. No.
You can make a recommendation.
Yeah, but then they're not gonna listen to you.
I wanted to make that distinction. Thank you.
But you could put this as addendum on this, because this is all what you just supported. I just hear you all support this, that it should be valued on different criteria, not just the year. So you could put this on there. And we talked about this at the last meeting. You write the CIP. Scott, you don't agree with the backhoe. You think it should be more than 7 years. Make a motion.
Yeah.
Make a
Well-
motion. I
Well,
want
the
it
thing about
12
it
years.
It's hard to make a motion on something that you don't know the condition of that machine is gonna be in 7
But you
years.
could put down 12. You could say, I think 7 is too short. I move that we make it 12 lifespan.
Oh, not for nothing, but we do that on a lot of stuff. We move a lot of stuff out. Just because trying to get that down under $1.
Right.
We have to take things, that
Yeah.
would do,
Yeah.
next year and push them.
Yeah.
Because, and not because of any condition of them, just to get it down below $1.
But Scott doesn't agree with you on that backhoe, and he's part of this group. He could make a motion to make that 12. Change it. He doesn't think it's accurate. If the rest of you agree with him, then it would be 12 and
Well,
She would move the numbers.
that system should be used before it gets to this paper, not
the what?
with this paper. It should be used before it gets to it.
Just to
Because
clarify,
who's gonna do that process? I mean, you get it to this paperwork here. Gonna do that.
Department
Am I
heads.
doing it?
Department heads. Department heads come in
Well,
and
that
say,
was done
say-
before it got to this paper.
he says the transmission's gone. There's the points. That means it needs to be replaced, even if it's only 2 years old. That's what I'm saying. You don't do it by years, you do it by the vehicle.
Right, well, obviously the fire department wanted that, and that's a good thing.
Yeah.
So maybe the other departments should have that too.
I agree.
$35,000 to get it, that's,
No.
I'd be looking for the cliff notes.
No, what Lauren's saying is the method of doing this is outlined right on that sheet of paper. And you can now apply that to any vehicle, any piece of equipment owned by the town. The theory on how to do it is right there. It just, they paid 35,000 to have somebody show them the theory.
If I can make an example, maybe let's use the ladder truck to be purchased in 2028. If they take the current ladder truck and use the point system, I don't want to reiterate, I have not read that, so I don't know
Right.
exactly what there, but I get the premise of what's there. And they can go down through that ladder truck and say, these are the points. Yep, it's no doubt that needs to go. Or
Right.
it stays for another couple of years.
Yep.
The money doesn't go bad when it's sitting in the savings account.
No.
I mean, but then we're gonna be chasing our tail on what it's gonna cost in another
Right.
2
If it
years
goes,
or
if it
whatever.
went to a fire and half of it got burned up, it was time to replace it because it doesn't make the point.
We have
It's-
100%
Oh,
replacement
if it's
insurance for
in
that.
great shape, it's in great shape, it doesn't burn any oil, everything's wonderful. Well, we could maybe put this off another couple of years. It's something based on something other than the seat of the pants. Of this year is gonna be time for the
And
replacement.
what you're looking at is the method of how it's derived.
Yes, and this study that they paid $35,000 for spells it right out. It's very well done.
I think you need to put your name on that seat and come back to a selectmen's meeting.
well, seemingly the selectmen approved this, so they must be behind it too.
No, they just received it. I don't know if they've approved this.
They've approved the 35,000 expenditure.
Oh, yeah, but I don't know if they've approved the.
Yeah, and I'll be honest with you, I have difficulty recommending something I haven't even,
Yeah, exactly.
Right.
so I don't think I could
Right.
push that along, but
So are you going to approve this to go to the next step tonight, or is it another meeting before you approve it?
well, as long as there are no major changes, then it
Well,
would
just
get
Scott.
approved tonight.
Just Scott makes that motion about the backhoe. Other than that, I don't know what else it would be. So anyway,
Thank you.
my point was about I don't think the 1.6 is gonna make hearing
But the
that
increase
thing
in
in
that
the,
project did, right?
No, you're most definitely correct.
yeah.
I'm not sure that you could do 300,000 a year times the next 5 years. It's gonna be up to what, that make it 2 million, 3.1 million, 3.1 million by then at that rate.
And
Could
it's gonna
be.
be funny to see where this goes, but.
Well,
So
right,
can we-
right now, I mean, it was like, we got this inflation thing going, so everybody says, okay, let's just.
Into the mic.
Exactly.
Let's get everything we can get. I mean, those prices aren't gonna go up continuously like they've done this past couple of years. This is like stick it to everybody right now. Get whatever you can, you know, it's crazy.
I think that's why procedurally it's beneficial to have something that, you know, we document that, you know, try to bring some process to this about life expectancy and put some criteria behind whether it's really a 20-year or 25-year lifespan. But procedurally, that should happen at the, the committee level, it seems to me, in terms of discussions with each of the respective departments.
You know, I think what they've done is laid out the thing is the right way to do it. Then when it comes time to spend it, they maybe need to use that document to spend the money. Because you have to have a bench.
You gotta have a placeholder, right?
Yeah,
I get
The
that.
25 years, that's gonna fill the slot.
Yeah.
You know, and if they decide to do something with it sooner because the numbers work to our advantage, then that's when they exercise that right and do something sooner than that.
But it's always beneficial to have a challenge function in that process.
Mhm.
It seemed to me that a recommendation from the planning board back to the committee would be beneficial for this next year.
I think that's a great idea. I think if we could all get copies of this,
Yes.
Yeah.
Appreciate it.
this. That thing,
So Lauren doesn't have to pay for it.
yeah, we don't all learn to pay for those copies.
You know how much it is for a copy in the town hall?
It's 25 cents, isn't it? 10 cents?
It's
I don't know.
50 cents.
How much?
50 cents a copy?
I think, yeah, 50 cents a copy. I think.
Oh, I was robbed. I was charged $1 copy.
It's double-sided.
Deep pockets.
Oh, boy.
Mr. Chairman, before you leave. Six. Estimate of what it would cost to replace it. Estimate of what it will cost to replace it. If that's an issue, then we've got a problem with all of this.
You mind sharing a table?
Sure, that's why I took one chair away.
All right, swing that microphone over.
Sounds good. We'll do our best. So the 1.6 number is actually a 2026 number. So we were originally set to replace this in 2026. The CIP committee pushed it out to 2028. So when they did that, we have not had a revision of that number since.
Can I ask you a question? Then? How
Yes.
did you do the math to get to the?
So-
Do you have, like, inflation number on that? or something?
Yes, there was an escalator that was put in there based from the dealer. So they are confirming kind of what Mr. Sample had said, that things are leveling off to some degree. So they anticipate the normal 3 to maybe 4% increase annually moving forward. However, we don't know.
That's
So-
every business.
Sure. And then just to circle back, we have another proposal going before the select board to potentially lease purchase this again, put it on the ballot for the voters to decide. Because what we're looking at is the inability to catch up with the price of this, even in today's money. So you're completely correct. A 2028 1.6 is not even, it's not going to work. So what we're looking at right now, and again, I wasn't totally prepared to speak on this tonight, so I apologize. I don't have anything to hand out. But what we're looking at is even with the price of financing, the 6 to 8% that we're looking at right now, what we would pay in finance charges doesn't even come close to what we're going to pay in the inflated price of 2028. So what we're looking at right now is roughly a $200,000 annual payment, which last year our appropriation to CIP was $450,000. This year we're at 200, and we're at about 200 moving forward. So if we pay 200,000 a year, potentially, including interest, by the time this thing's all said and done, it'll be about $200,000 in interest. We anticipate that this will cost well more than 1.8 in 2028. So that's the proposal that's going in front of the select board. And again, it puts the kind of the decision in the voters' hands of where we're going to go with this. But that's really and truly the only way that we can envision not having a significant impact to the taxpayer for 2028.
I
So
would
if
like to
if I heard, excuse me, if I heard you correctly, you're going to go before the select board to do this,
I'm sorry, not tomorrow, next week, next Tuesday.
but to initiate this lease to purchase option when?
It won't initiate it, so any long-term lease has to go on the ballot. I believe it's a 3/5 majority. So it wouldn't actually, the decision,
So-
2/3.
So where I'm going with this is that, let's say it does and gets its 2/3 and it passes. I mean, you're gonna be executing this in 2024?
It would be 2024 essentially, but still we wouldn't take delivery until 2026 at least.
Do you feel the current ladder truck will get you to 2028?
We foresee a lot of very expensive repairs on the horizon. We had
What
an
do you
aerial class just over the past couple weeks where we started using the aerial a lot. And we're having difficulty getting it to go in and out of pump. We also had the wiring system that travels along the aerial device is in like a plastic chain, if that makes sense.
Mhm.
And with all of the UV damage, that actually disintegrated on one of the evolutions and pinched and ripped a bunch of wires.
What do you think
Um,
made that UV stable?
So, we're kind of at the point where we've got this like lingering, $20,000-$30,000 worth of expenses that we kind of need to put into it. And
What do
again,
you-
it's the domino effect that
Do
we
you
worry about.
foresee yourself maybe wanting another used one in the stopgap?
My,
It
my,
was 75,000
Yeah,
bucks.
Sure.
exactly. I
So-
mean, it's a long ways from 1.6
so
million.
it's a consideration, right? But the other issue that we're facing is everybody is having these long delay times for delivery. So other people are pursuing the same opportunities that we took. So it's rare that we're going to be able to go out and find something that one fits in our building. And two is going to be in good enough condition to say maybe it'll last another 5 years. We looked kind of for years and years before we came across this one. And we lucked out.
But
Now-
frankly, I mean, even if you had to put $100,000 or $200,000 into the unit,
Sure.
it still would be wise money spent relative to a $1.6 million expenditure.
It-
Um,
to some
Sorry,
deg-
I think that, from my standpoint, I come back to, there's an obligation to look at the criteria for service life.
Absolutely.
And
Without a
look
doubt.
at this, particularly in light of the inflation we're dealing with at this point, and try to find ways to tighten the belt, frankly.
Right. Yeah, and I mean, the only thing that we can look back on is our personal history as a town. When we set up a lot of these lifespans, they weren't just kind of off the cuff. Most of them were based on our history. I know Mr. Williams can speak to the fact that we had a 35-year-old fire truck with rotten frame rails and it was barely going out the door and nobody knew how to drive it. And, it was very difficult to get that truck replaced. I think back
It was difficult to
specifically.
get that truck purchased.
Yeah. With this particular situation, I think back to our previously owned ladder truck, which we had a swivel go bad in it. And we spent about $100,000 between that and some extension pistons, in rebuilds, about 3 years before that truck was permanently taken out of service. So the expenses and repairs that we could potentially put into these is very variable, not even to mention the
Fully understood.
downtime. Not even to mention the downtime. So we can absolutely continue to hang on to it. But some of the bigger issues with this truck, again, is the fact that the aerial device itself is no longer made. There's no parts for it. They went out of business in the early 2000s. So
The aerial.
Aerial Innovations.
Much for the innovation.
Yeah. So, I mean, it's more of a compounding thing. And again, we're dealing with some issues right now that we're kind of okay with, but as the dominoes kind of stand up taller and taller, when one thing fails, it's
But
kind of
I
like a
think again,
cascading
coming
effect.
back to the inflationary aspect here, this 1.6, I understand it's a placeholder, but that's not going to hold in 20.
It's not going to hold. So, and that's why we kind of came up with the idea of putting it out to the voters for a lease, because I mean, for us to try and put away enough money, it's not going to work, especially with trying.
Tax rate.
Sure, absolutely. And we're sensitive to that. So
So you're gonna lease it, but you're still not gonna get it to 2028.
No.
26, so it's still just
2 years out of
about
the
2
purchase.
years out. Longer.
You said that they will hold it. If you order it now, that price, they'll hold it. That was also at that meeting. Just
Is that
add
because it has to
in.
be built?
Yeah.
I'm sorry?
Is that because it has to be built? mean, if you
Yes,
buy-
because it has to be built. Yeah, everything.
224, I mean, and you don't get it to 226.
They want the order.
So the order, yes, but when we lease something, they get the check cut that day from the leasing company. So they get their money day one, essentially.
It's
In
KME.
2024.
It would be E1.
That's what I thought.
Yeah, and when we went through the process, that's who it was. And yeah, so if we ordered in 2024, they would get their money that day, which is why the price holds.
As I say, if you go on the town videos on 4/03/23, the selectmen's meeting, video meeting. Goes all over what we're talking about. It's an interesting meeting. And the inflation thing, in 2018, the warrant article was for less than $900,000. That was before this great inflation we've had, so.
I wouldn't call it great.
Well, that's, I guess, my point. And we're gonna have to end up buying a ladder truck.
Well, you know,
Don't faint. I know, I said it. But anyway, anyway, that's one of the things I saw this, I said. So anyway, like I said, this is just the process of that project. This isn't what they spent $35,000 for. It tells about how many people we ought to have, the buildings, everything else. It's, I don't know, like 80 pages.
it's
not-
quite an
This is
in-depth-
just one little section that they came up with. It. This is a process a town ought to use. So, and I think it will apply to fire.
Highway.
Highway department and all the rest of it. It's a good process. After Scott makes his motion about the echo. Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else?
Richard Shea. Am I close enough to this thing? Okay, all right. A member of the Board of Selectmen, but definitely speaking as an individual and a taxpayer. When you sit at these meetings and you listen to the discussions, you want to jump in because you always got a point to make. I got a bunch of points here. They're probably not in reasonable order. But first of all, I wanted to say our CIP plan, I think, is very detailed and extraordinarily helpful. Other towns that I've lived in don't have anything like this. And I hope that the people that put the effort into it will accept my appreciation and hopefully every taxpayer's appreciation for the work that was done, because it's a ton of work. And of course, like anything else you do, as soon as you put it up, it gets all shot up, but you got to start from somewhere. The evaluation of equipment, that proposal that's in the fire department study is an excellent one. And certainly that study is on the website. And if you get a chance to take a look at it, it is highly detailed. When we first decided to do it, I thought $35,000 was a pretty stiff price. But after reviewing what was proposed and the information, I think it was a bargain. And I think it's going to stand us in good stead going forward for more than just equipment, for kind of reorganizing our staffing and our scheduling. And of course, it gives us a hard time about the condition of some of our fire stations themselves, which we're going to have to face up to one of these days and probably soon. The thing that we're up against across the board, and everybody's aware of it, is inflation is just brutal. Anybody sat me down in 2017 or 2018 and told me plan on 9% inflation in a couple of years, I'm sorry to say I would have laughed at him and I would have been dead wrong. So we are up against inflation, which seems to be tapering off, but not dropping to the extent we'd like. In addition to that, we're up against brutally long lead times. If you want to buy a lot of equipment now, you can place the order today and not see it for 2 years or more, which makes it's an additional element of concern that we can't do a lot about, but we certainly have to keep it in mind. Because if we, the the discussion that we just had here, oh, suppose the ladder truck completely failed, we'd have to buy a new one right away. Well, we'd have to place a new one on order right away, but we wouldn't have one for 2 years or more. It's just a nasty situation in that regard. The evaluation that the Board of Selectmen does, I'm sure can always be improved, but we do have one advantage that sometimes drives me nuts with the discussions, but most of our board is truck and construction guys. And they will quickly jump in and say, well, you should be able to get more time out of this, or that thing is a piece of junk and we ought to be rid of it. And they've got practical experience in their background that means that their judgment is worth like a lot more than mine would be, who gets in trouble if my lawnmower won't start. Those guys know equipment and they know what to expect. And I think Scott Kinman, our Public Works Director, is equally good that way and very practical. And while there certainly is room for discussion and consideration of other viewpoints, I'd give a fair amount of weight to those viewpoints because they're backed with experience. I don't think we have a lot of department heads that just want to grab something because the getting is good this year. And if the getting is good this year, it's not going to be good next year. You're looking at this year's taxes that go out, the bills go out in early December are probably going to be higher than what people were expecting. And next year's tax increases are just plain flabbergasting. And we don't have all the numbers yet.
If I can make one point while you're right there.
Yes, sir, please.
Have the board considered, like in 2008, and I don't know if Lauren, you were sitting when that time frame, is we had a massive shrink assessed value of the town at the 2008 slowdown,
Yeah, I'll
a
bet.
massive shrink. Now, if we take $500 million, $500 million off our assessed value, that's going to make all these numbers that much worse because you have a much smaller pie in which to cut the pieces out of.
That's true. And
People
one of
need
the
to remember
bright
that.
parts that we have right now is with all of the construction going on in Alton, I'm sure that what they usually call a grand list or total assessed value is going to increase. It won't increase nearly enough to offset all the needs we have, but at least it's headed in the right direction. So I'm not looking forward to this budget season. We're going to have to make a lot of tough choices. I suspect that some of the capital equipment appropriations that we normally put in so many dollars per year as almost a routine thing are going to have to be reduced so that we can keep the tax increase down to something that people can grin and bear if they even do that. And I hope they will. But I do appreciate the efforts that are being made here to help us out. We're going to be looking for more help. So thank you very much.
Sure you do. There's always a rebuttal.
I think you should look into the jaws of death tonight. Make a motion. That backhoe. No, I'm serious. I'm serious.
Well, you know,
Why don't you do it? You have the experience. Roger has the experience. You people believe in these two, don't you? And he says 5 years, was it 7? They have
7, yeah.
Okay.
It's-
so
it- it-
What would that get us? What would that achieve?
It would achieve that this plan would be better set up with reality. Instead of somebody saying 5 years, and 5 years is not correct. It was the same as the roller. That was another thing. Even the chairman of your subcommittee, because you people are the
Yep. That's
you
right.
people, you saw that at the last meeting. You people would be coming better to reality of what should be in that CIP plan. You two know that 7 years for that backhoe that works, how many months of the year does it sit?
Oh,
Okay, well,
Four.
So,
At least
so
5.
why aren't you adjusting this thing? With
My
your experience?
yeah, well, I'll do it. I don't mind. I'll do that.
Let's look in
Okay.
the face of death. Worst they can do is get a rope,
The
right?
thing about it is if they adopt the point system,
Yes.
that will take all this away. It really will, other than the placeholders we keep for budgetary purposes in which to
Right.
raise money. But
Right.
if the Board of Selectmen buy into that and want to use that, if it works equipment wide, then they'll buy into it, and then that will tell them whether they make the purchase or not.
Right, and then if they have to make it early, okay, then you have to adjust next year, your CIP plan. If it goes out another 2 years, you adjust the CIP plan next year. There's no rope at the end here. You're gonna be,
And
you're
this
gonna
is-
be hung out there if you make it your opinion on this CIP document.
Chairman, it strikes me though, to Lauren's point, that, we shouldn't cherry pick one specific item here. I think it's procedurally, we should be looking at how do we make this a more robust process going forward, and looking at using that point system as a way to bring in, some open debate about what the real lifespan should be.
Mr. Chairman.
I think, let me just respond to that, though. I just very quickly read through the point system and,
Yeah.
and it is slick, but this is a snapshot in time.
Yeah.
This is
Yeah,
in this
understood.
moment. This is not predicting what that piece of equipment is going to look like in 1 year, 2 year, 5 years. It
It's
really
not.
is not. So I think for the CIP outlay that we've got here, and you may be right, Lauren and Roger, on durations and how long things should last. I don't know. But what potential tool to this is to say that after the 7 years, when they come looking for that new backhoe, that they go through this system, they say, no way, it's still in good condition. No immediate replacement need.
That would be a burden onto the selectmen. That's what I'm saying. You could put that in there and say, we think you ought to follow that procedure.
Yeah.
That's all you can do, is it's a recommendation
And it
thing.
And I
helps
think
bring some
once the rest
process.
of the boards had a
Right.
chance to review, I think, yes,
Mr. Chairman,
yes, sir.
he wants Scott to go on this backhoe here. Okay, well, what that will do is that will trash this plan. And this plan, I believe, just if I'm not, is ready to move along. Now, that process can be done next year. We can use the point system. We can
Yeah,
tell those
exactly.
guys that backhoe is no good next year, but I think
That's
this,
a very good.
to throw this away when it's ready to, its final destination.
Maybe as a pregame theory when the capital committee puts out their request to the department heads, say that you want to see a lot of extra time spent on life of the vehicles.
It's a good idea for next year.
Last year, you made a motion, put on the bottom of that CIP plan, that the selectmen would review the piece of equipment. Does that remember? You made a I brought this up. You made a motion. Do you see those minutes? Do you see that addition on the bottom of that paper?
I do not.
No, that was, next year we'll do it. And why do you think, having his experience and your experience, to change that number is such a blow up of that program? Or if you make that motion, say, I think it'll be 12 years, Jessica will change the numbers and it'll go to the selectmen. There's no lightning bolt gonna hit here. It's your experience. You people are the authors of the CIP plan. That subcommittee works for you. They're making recommendations to you. This is what I guess I was trying to point last year is, it's getting to be that's volunteer CIP subcommittee can't be messed with. Remember Tom Hoop said, oh, we can't change it. And Scott brought it up on his telephone and said, yes, the planning board is the one responsible, not them. And I'm afraid this is folding over into the selectmen's. Truck with 70,000 miles on it. It's due this year. It got sold. Never went down and looked at it. Just, okay, time's up. There's no way that this thing shouldn't work. Come on, it should be. Our tax dollars are spent the most efficient way we can spend them. That's gotta be whether that equipment needs to be replaced or not. Whether it's earlier or later, Said it 1 year, this year is the wheels are gonna fall off. I don't agree with that. I don't think anybody does. So why not use your experience and say, I don't think that's quite right. The subcommittee's quite got that right. What will happen? We'll fall in?
But I think the concern is delaying the passing of this, having to do another public hearing on any changes.
The thing about it is even if we put 12 years on this, this is just a guideline.
Yeah.
This whole thing, the guideline. So I think to make a motion to do that is probably a waste of judicial work here, because the equipment is gonna do it. I think the Board of Selectmen really need to knuckle down on this because they get another swipe at this, right?
I'd come back. I mean, we're going through many of the same discussions we had a year ago. this time.
Absolutely. We'll have it next year too.
I think the question is, how do you put more meat in this department, or not in this department, but in the committee, to make certain that the challenges really happen back to the departments, so that we get a document that.
But the Capital Improvement Committee's been in existence for, I'm gonna guess 30-ish years. And the first 10 or 15 years, it was a waste of
But
effort
no
by the
matter how
Capital
good this
Improvement
document is today, it can always be better procedurally.
But the thing about it is, that my point when I say it was a waste, nobody ever bought into the program. Period.
You mean
So-
just because they didn't believe in the numbers?
They just didn't buy into it. I don't know how best to explain that, but they didn't buy into it. After 2 years of that, I left the board because I have better things to do with my time than to work as hard as they do. And I will grant them, they work hard and it's difficult. And they did nothing with it. And I says, when I did my capital improvement thing, when I was fire chief, I says, you want next year's? I got it all done because nobody did anything with it. So.
So what are you recommending?
So then I
What are
think
you
we,
suggesting?
I think procedurally for next year, when we go through this, that, contingent on what that document says about bringing some procedures or challenge functions to the whole process for how you develop the plan, that actually is noted and is part of the charge back to the committee. Actually embrace that as part of the plan.
Well, it needs to go beyond we didn't write 7 years down there.
I know you didn't.
And
But-
those numbers come to us.
Yeah.
And we do challenge when like I say, when we're trying to make it $1, we push everything away. I mean, it needs to go back to those department heads. It's like one thing that we told the selectmen was, we want the selectmen, so when you bring, I need a pickup. You gotta go to the selectmen before you can put it on our paper. Selectmen gotta approve you getting that pickup
Yeah.
before it goes on this
But they
document.
don't do that.
I guess we haven't pushed hard enough. I mean, actually, I think we just came up with the idea. Because, and what mostly brought it up was this stupid roadside lawnmower.
So to that point about it going to the selectmen before it comes to the CIP group, we saw projects coming in and we're like, have these been vetted? Because in the opinion of the capital improvement plan subcommittee was that they were not a justification committee. They were a dollars and cents numbers committee. The point of our existence was to stabilize that stabilize that impact to the tax rate. So this year, it was pushed pretty hard that we want as a formal process that it goes to the select board for approval before it goes on the document.
Oh, there you go. Nice job,
Well,
Pat.
I guess maybe we should come back. What is the charter of the committee then?
Yeah,
I think
Are you to be a challenge function, or are you just to be an
right
aggregator
now.
of numbers?
Yeah, just numbers.
yeah. Their job is not to determine the worthiness of the request.
I don't know. I mean, so you're saying they're not a challenge function to that planning process?
Well, to go with what Pat said. it
So I
sounds-
mean, that's what I heard.
Yeah, I mean, it sounds like they should be saying that this is what, and the selectmen should be saying, Yeah, I approve these things to go on the budget to move them out.
All right, so hang on. So this is right out of the capital improvement program policy and procedures handbook.
All right, there we go.
The CIP committee may alter a department head's suggested year of implementation and or method of financing when they finalize the CIP plan. The CIP committee may decide not to recommend inclusion of a project in the CIP plan.
More than an aggregate.
Yes.
So Scott, you've got the experience. Think that number's 12 instead of 7?
Probably 20.
Well, you can't
But
do that.
I come back to Roger's point. I wouldn't be into the weeds doing that tonight relative to this.
Yeah, I think it's, I agree 100% that it should be 12, but I'm not one.
But
change
next
that.
year, when we go through this, I think it's more to that committee that they say, well, is 7 years really the
And-
number or not?
And I think they should have some guidance from the Board of Selectmen. The Board of Selectmen needs to gather up all this information and say, okay, we think this piece of equipment, the shelf life should be this much under general conditions. It can vary, as we all know.
Well, I think that's what the planning board is charged with.
I do this.
So.
Well, it sounds like we better start interviewing all. the
That's,
department
and
heads.
that comes back to my point that we should be learning from last year's discussion and this year's in getting ready for how this happens.
Right, and to emphasize on that, that note that was supposed to be added to the bottom of all of this. I think I would like to have that added before this goes on.
But you didn't say. You say, I want added.
It's the
Not
same,
I like.
same thing, sorry, I do that at work too.
He's
When I
pretty
say
talented.
I would like you to do this, it means go do it.
I'm glad to hear that. Interesting evening.
Thank you.
Thank you.
You got that, add that note?
From what note
The
specifically?
note at the bottom that we all agreed to last year that would be added,
That would have been at last year's public hearing.
yes.
Second that.
I don't know if that's a formal
Okay,
motion or
okay.
do we need a motion on it or not?
No, because I think it was already decided a year
Yeah,
ago.
exactly. I agree.
Wow.
So with that, are there any other changes? Scott,
Oh, I'm sitting still.
okay. So, anybody would, I guess any more public input?
And I was prepared to speak about this, because I knew that lifespans were going to be a big topic tonight. In fact, when we do set out those lifespans, it's not just like a random arbitrary number. There is a little bit of Alton history, how we run our trucks and how long they have previously lasted. But we also fall back on NFPA recommendations, which essentially says after 15 years, we shouldn't rely on a vehicle for emergency purposes anymore. We realize that that's unrealistic, especially for our community. So then we also fall back on the Fire Apparatus Manufacturers Association. They actually did up a white paper on this, and they show roughly how long vehicles will last in given environments, whether it's inner city, urban, rural, in those areas. So the numbers that you have in front of you tonight for the 20 and 25 years is pretty consistent with that. The only reason I say pretty is because engine 2 is a pumper tanker. And it's the only one that we own. So we felt like relying on that as a first due vehicle for ensuring that it's good for 25 years was a little unrealistic. So that's why that
How
one was
old
left
is this
at
one?
20. The current one,
Engine 2.
20. Yep. So it'll be 22 by the
And
time.
how
we get
much
the
is the
new
new one costing?
879.
I can give a reference. I think we purchased the engine 2, it was like $234,000, I think somewhere around there. My memory serves me right.
For sure.
That's just to show 20 years. what happened
Yep.
to the cost of that
So
similar truck.
I just wanted to give that as a little bit of backup info of how we came up with this.
All right, thank you. All right, any other public input? Hearing none, close the public session. Any further deliberation from board? Okay, so we take a vote. I will make the motion that we submit the 24-29 CIP plan as presented with the exception of the addition that was noted at last year's public hearing at the end of it to the Board of Selectmen and the Budget Committee.
I would second.
Sorry, I did kind of,
Thanks.
I did kind of leave that hanging, didn't I? All right, so motion by Drew, second by Doug. Any other discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Passes unanimously.
Excuse me, Mr. Chair, may I make a comment?
Yes.
So I would just wanted to make a public thank you to the CIP committee again this year for their hard work and assistance in helping me create this great plan and tool for the town. So thank you again.
It's a hard job.
Okay, next on the agenda is the joint meeting with the zoning amendment committee. So presentation of recommendations for proposed amendments to the zoning ordinance of the planning board. So everybody should have copies of these. They were available out front. And
Mr. Chair, I just would like to note, I'm just gonna check the computer and make sure that Tara Bamford, our consultant, is still in the queue over there.
She's still here? I mean.
I am.
Hi, Tara.
Perfect.
Poor thing.
Okay. We don't have her on video, but we do have her on audio tonight.
I was wondering she's not asleep.
are you kidding with all this excitement?
Yeah.
All right, so the first planning board proposed amendment number 1 to amend Article 200 definitions by amending the bed and breakfast to include accommodations for less than 3 guests. So that's now down to 1 to 5 guests. Need to read that whole thing, do I?
No,
Thank you.
No.
So the rationale on this was to address the potential conflicts with the recent approval of the short-term rental ordinance. Amendment is being proposed to allow for less than 3 guests transient use. So, and I don't, can we take each one of these individually with the
Yes,
public?
I think we should.
Yeah. So is there any questions from the public on that? None? Close the public session on that one and moving on to the next one.
Mr. Chairman, would you like it? I'll move amendment number 1 to the ballot.
I'll second that.
So this isn't the public hearing.
Oh, it's
Oh,
not?
I thought it
Oh.
was.
No, this is the presentation from
Then-
the ZAC committee. And
I'll
actually, if
retract that.
I just wanted to clarify that Mr. Shea is here to fill in for Nick, who was the selectman's rep on the ZAC committee. So I just wanted to let you know. So yeah, this is just a
Okay.
presentation like.
Oh, here, I
like
thought we
CIP
were doing the
present-
official
Yeah,
public.
nope.
All right, excellent. All right. So, next item, planning board proposed amendment number 2 to amend Article 200 definitions by adding a new definition for junkyard and to amend Article 400 zoning districts regulations, section 401 permitted uses, table of uses by adding a new use D.27 junkyard and to renumber others to make it all work. So the definition will be a junkyard is any use which meets the terms and definitions of junkyard found in the New Hampshire RSA 236:111-A and 112 as amended. Its use is strictly prohibited in all zoning districts, except as otherwise allowed by the zoning ordinance for automotive and truck junk motor vehicle dealer, automotive and truck motor vehicle dealer, or automotive and truck used motor vehicle dealer. Everybody clear on that?
Yep.
And the rationale behind this was really, was to get us more in line with the definitions and uses that the state use on this. So amendment number 3, this is the big one here. That we're proposing. This is to amend Article 300 General Provisions by adding Section 366 Flexible Zoning Subdivision, and to amend Article 400 Zoning District Regulations, Section 401 Permitted Uses, Table of Uses, by adding A, 0.5 Flexible Zoning Subdivision to be allowed in the Residential Rural Zone, RR, and Rural Zone, RU, and to renumber the listing of A residential uses. Numerical order. So part of this includes basically it affects accessory dwelling units, setback requirements, zoning district regulations, and restrictions governing the use. General provisions, flexible zoning subdivision, and it also repeals in Article 400 zoning districts regulation in the rural zone, RU, Section 452 restrictions governing use that restricts the construction of 2 separate single-family dwellings only on a lot with more than 45 acres as follows. There's so much to this. It's in the residential rural zone and rural zones, the planning board may grant a conditional use permit for a flexible zoning subdivision. In a flexible zoning subdivision, the planning board may approve reduced lot sizes, reduced frontage requirements, reduced setbacks, and multiple dwellings on a lot in accordance with the following provisions. A, the purpose. This is flexibility in subdivision design may be approved to increase the diversity of the town's housing stock while promoting the most appropriate use of land and the protection of productive agriculture and or forest land, scenic views, historic sites, shorelines, wetlands, important habitat areas, and other resources of importance to the community in accordance with the vision and goals of the master plan. B, applicability. An applicant must have a minimum of 2 acres in the rural residential zone. The residential rural zone, and 4 acres in the rural zone in order to apply for flexible zoning subdivision. C, the home type and size. For one, the flexible zoning subdivisions may be comprised of different types of dwelling units, i.e. single-family dwelling, duplex or 2-family dwelling, townhouse or multifamily structure, provided the dwelling type is either a permitted use in a zoning district or has been granted a special exception by the ZBA if required. Dwellings in a flexible zoning subdivision may be all on the same lot. Item 2, permanent covenants shall be required, limiting homes to no larger than 1,200 square feet of gross total floor area, plus a 2-car garage no larger than 576 square feet. 3, accessory dwelling units, ADUs, shall be allowed in a flexible zoning subdivision, but must be within or attached to the principal building and shall not exceed 750 square feet of gross total floor area. 1 additional parking space shall be provided for the ADU. All other provisions of Section 319 accessory dwelling unit standards shall apply. D, the density. The base number of or determining the total number of lots or dwelling units that can be approved in a flexible zoning subdivision will be determined based on the number that would be otherwise approved under a conventional subdivision plan. The applicant may choose to demonstrate the number of lots or dwelling units that could be approved under a conventional subdivision plan by either A, submitting a concept plan showing lots, road rights of way, stormwater management areas, and any other areas which would not be incorporated in an individual lots as necessary to meet the usual minimum standards for the district without the need for any lot area or lot dimension variances and accounting for development limitations such as steep slopes, wetlands, septic suitability, available water supply, adequate driveway access to each lot in compliance with the Town of Alton subdivision regulations. Or B, after accounting for areas that must be subtracted from the acreage figure utilized to calculate the developable area pursuant to other sections of this zoning ordinance, such as steep slopes and wetlands, subtracting 15% of the property in the residential rural zone or 10% in the rural zone, roads, drainage, and other utilities prior to dividing by the minimum acreage required per unit for that district. There's also density bonuses. A density bonus of 20% will be granted by the planning board, provided the applicant can demonstrate the provision of water supply and wastewater treatment in accordance with New Hampshire Department of Environmental Services requirements and compliance with all other criteria for a flexible zoning subdivision. For B, a density bonus of 40% will be granted by the planning board for flexible zoning subdivisions that meet all the water and wastewater criteria of paragraph D.2.A that I just read, and permanently conserve the greater of 10 acres or 50% of the lot as open space. Total of 10% of the conserved open space land may be utilized for water supply, wastewater treatment, stormwater treatment, and or a shared recreation area for residents, such as playing fields and or a playground. E, arrangement and dimensions of lots. To the extent practical, flexible zoning subdivision plan shall concentrate the development away from the most important resources and from those areas of the property that are most environmentally sensitive, while providing adequate open space areas for use by future residents. 2, the minimum size of individual lots shall be determined by the planning board based on the character of the land and neighborhood and adequacy of the soils to support on-site wastewater disposal and wells, unless on public water supply, safety of access, traffic and pedestrian circulation, impervious surface, and other issues relating to the future use and enjoyment of the property. 3, the planning board may approve reduced interior setbacks. Front setbacks may be reduced from an internal subdivision road. The setbacks from existing roads and from abutting properties not part of the application shall not be reduced. When approving the 3 or more dwellings on a single lot, the planning board may require greater than usual required setbacks from abutting properties and existing roads and or vegetative screening. Buildings shall be separated by a minimum of 20 feet, measured at the nearest point of any architectural feature, such as an eave, deck, or bulkhead. Sorry, that was item 4. Item 5, the planning board may approve reduced frontage requirements on interior roads when frontage requirements are reduced. The planning board may require shared driveways. Running out of voice here.
Oh, yeah, about halfway through.
Yeah. All right.
Little over
Number
halfway.
6. The factors considered by the planning board when evaluating the proposed arrangement of lots or of mutual dwelling units on a lot shall include, but not be limited to, the following. A, arrangement of roads, stormwater facilities, wastewater, and other utilities in conformance with the natural feature of the parcel, minimizing changes to the topography. B, usefulness of open space areas for a range of outdoor recreation activities by future residents. C, minimization of impervious cover. D, protection of stream corridors, important habitat areas, and wetlands if applicable. E, feasibility of continued or future agriculture or forest management use if applicable. F, relationship to neighboring property, including conservation easements or natural, cultural, recreational, or scenic features. F, permanently protected area. 1A is for each lot less than the minimum size normally required for the district, one or more lots larger than the minimum shall be provided in order to maintain an average lot size no smaller than the minimum lot size normally required for the district. Permanent protection from further development shall be provided for an area equal to or exceeding the sum of the areas by which individual lots are reduced below the minimum normally required for that district. B, for flexible zoning subdivisions granted a density bonus, the total acreage shall be divided by the increased number of dwelling units allowed, and the resulting figure shall be utilized for the calculation in paragraph A above in place of the minimum lot size. C, the protected land shall be shown on the final plat. Conservation restriction recorded with the Belknap County Register of Deeds, or covenants recorded with the deeds of the lots containing the additional acreage utilized to offset the reduced acreage of other lots prohibiting further subdivision. Again, under permanently protected areas, number 2, pursuant to New Hampshire RSA 674:21-A as amended, planning board approval of a flexible zoning subdivision requiring the permanent protection of land shall result in the creation of a conservation restriction incorporating the location, size, and permissible uses of the land area that is to remain undeveloped. If the undeveloped area is to be held in common, all covenants, deed restrictions, organizational provisions, or a homeowners association or equivalent, and any other agreements regarding the method of ownership, management, or maintenance of the protected area shall be established prior to final planning board approval of the flexible zoning subdivision plan, sent to the town attorney for review and comment at the owner's expense. By mutual agreement of the planning board and subdivider, the conservation restriction may take the form of a conservation easement to the Alton Conservation Commission or private conservation group or other instrument approved by the planning board.
Nice job.
I need a nap. So that one was a heavy one. Everybody get all those details? Because even in the discussion on all this, I am still not entirely sure that I could sit down and figure out how many units I could get onto a single piece of property without charting this out and taking quite a bit of time.
Big time.
The first person that takes a swing at this has got some work ahead of them.
They sure do. They sure do. And the planning board, you know, is going to have a lot of responsibility in evaluating the application here. It's good. It's a heavy load to carry. So any comments, any questions?
Yeah, I have a question. So
Yep.
this is an article to go voters. Have to read what you just read to decide.
Yeah, this is all going to be, this is all going to be laid out for them.
Is that going to be on the ballot? All
I
that?
think it is, isn't it?
Maybe they can do a recording of reading it.
So what ends up on the ballot is not the entire article. The information that goes on the ballot is located right under where it says, you know, planning board proposed amendment number, whatever the number is. That paragraph and the rationale goes on the ballot.
All the red does not.
Yep, right. So this whole document is provided to voters, you know, all along.
It's
But,
online
but
and all that
it's,
stuff.
yeah, and it's provided, at the ballots. I believe they have to have this document available.
To kind of like wrap all that up. Probably I should be reading the rationale as well into the record. This amendment is being proposed to allow for flexibility in subdivision design to increase the diversity of the town's housing stock and other important resources in the community in accordance with the vision and goals of the master plan. This amendment also proposes to remove the provision that restricts the construction of 2 separate single-family dwellings in the rural zone only on a lot with more than 45 acres, therefore allowing for a more flexible housing stock. So we're, and I know that you're making a funny face, but, and it is a little confusing because it's like a double negative. But right now you have to have a minimum of 45 acres in order to get a second dwelling unit on the property. So this eliminates that requirement.
Where'd you find that rationale?
That is, boy, I don't know.
It's on page 7. Yeah, they're at the top. The page numbers are at the top of the document.
So it ended here and here's the,
Well, no, it goes, all that stuff went through it too. That rationale in the right spot?
Yes.
There's just so much meat to this.
That's what, we spent probably 80% of the time on this.
Yeah. Tara, do you have anything to add?
No, but I can tell you that it's 6 or 7 homes on 5 acres in the residential rural and instead of the usual 5, and 6 or 7 homes on 10 acres in the rural district instead of the usual 5. If you want to think about the density bonuses in terms of numbers.
Yeah, that's an important thing to understand.
So, I mean, I think you hit on it in the rationale that this combines 2 important master plan objectives, protecting scenic and natural resources that was such a high priority to the community in the surveys, and increasing housing opportunity for people like young families and seniors trying to downsize, and folks that have a lot of the jobs in town that can't afford a larger home. This incentivizes building some starter homes with the density bonuses.
Well
But
said.
it can also be 2 homes on a lot, which is something the zoning doesn't allow yet. As you said, without 45 acres.
No, that's,
No, yeah,
that's
no.
a deliberative, the
Pull your
deliberative
mic down.
exception. That's why, yeah.
Mike, so so we don't have town meetings. So,
We're SB2.
right, so what we'll have is we'll have a public hearing on this. So the public will have the opportunity to come in and critique and question and get clarifications on it. But then it just goes straight to the vote in March.
Is there anything done in the deliberative session on zoning items or not?
There are no, so the deliberative session is for money warrant articles.
Oh,
So no, so zoning
Okay. that- I
ordinarily,
was thinking
unless
that.
the moderator does have, I think, the ability to open that, but historically, I don't think that's happened as far as I know.
And just to clarify, that's not because you're an SB2 town when it comes to the zoning amendments. A traditional town meeting, it goes from the planning board's public hearing to the ballot.
I had another question in terms of this density bonus. If I read this right, it's limited to houses of 1,200 square feet.
Correct.
The idea was to have people of modest means. I don't think you can fit a 10,000 square foot, 1,200 square foot home next door to each other. It probably would be unappetizing. Especially with the guy in 10,000.
The zoning amendment committee had started out in, kind of two different use cases for the flexible zoning, but by kind of late in the process decided why not combine them so that it's smaller homes and natural resource protection.
Okay. Anything from, any questions from public on this? Huh? And it's not a public hearing, but I'm certainly, you know, if you have a thought on it, I'd like to hear it briefly.
Wrong.
Why isn't this cluster housing?
Say this again?
Why isn't this just cluster housing again?
They renamed it.
Pardon?
They renamed it.
But it's cluster housing.
It's cluster housing, but it's also in a more kind of an open concept, I think, in a.
You know,
It's not,
cluster housing's been rejected in this town several times, right?
it's not necessarily a cluster either. It may be two homes on one lot.
It's flexible zoning.
I think Roger answered the question.
All right, so the next item up, proposed amendment number 4. This is to amend Article 300 general provisions by amending Section 329 condominiums to be consistent with state law.
Mr. Chair, may I interject for just one moment?
I wish you would.
So we have our consultant on hold. Shall we just confirm with her that we are done with her and
Yes, I
she
think-
may move along for the night,
Yeah.
so we don't leave her hanging?
She's done a lot of waiting so far.
Yes. So Tara, so yes, I think we're all set. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Tara.
Okay, so let me know when your public hearing is, and if I'm available, I'll be happy to sit in again.
Fantastic. All right.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Good night. Have a good Thanksgiving.
You too. So amendment number 4, and this has to do with condominium ownership of property shall conform with the following procedures and standards. New construction for condominium conveyance are permitted in any district and requires site plan and subdivision approval by the planning board. And this is just really cleaning up and aligning us with state regulations.
Correct.
Next item is proposed amendment number 5. This is amending the definition for self-storage facility to allow for the individual units to be sold. And the rationale is being proposed to allow for the condominium, of individual units. Somebody else say that word for me.
Is it a word?
Condominiumizing of individual units. Which is a trend that's going on quite a bit out there.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes, sir.
just so I understand it. So self-storage, they're becoming condos?
Yes.
You could buy a single unit at a self-storage facility that has been condominiumized.
I can give you, for instance,
Good.
remember where Christmas Tree Inn was up in Guilford, just before you get to Alacoya?
Right, well, I know those,
Those are condominium storage units.
they were built that way, but so, so the guy on Route 11, he can condominiumize the place?
Yeah, well, he would have to apply for it.
Yeah, and he'd have to come up with the covenants and the regulations and maintenance fees and how to maintain it, so
Yeah, and in order to make that change, that's a state approval too. So it's not, it's no easy hoop to jump through.
That come before the.
Yes.
Yes, there'd be a change in the use, so. Any other questions? All right, so proposed amendment number 6. And this is to, was addressing a little faux pas from, last year's vote. Any district, that includes 100 or fewer properties are supposed to or get their notification of the public hearing by first-class mail. So that's being done this time. And, because that did pass last year, but technically with that one recreational service zone, got to do it again. Planning board proposed amendment number 7, amend Article 200 definitions by renaming the use church to religious use of land and structures. And this ties back to a law that was passed actually 2 years ago now, I think. Yeah, 2022. That the state passed, and we held the horses on it because we weren't sure if that change in law was going to stick.
The state used the word church, I believe, and we decided to use something that religious use as.
It could be a synagogue.
Could be anything.
Yep.
Yep.
So that aligns us with state as well. Planning board proposed amendment number 8. And this is basically getting rid of the overlay, the district's, excuse me, the shoreland protection overlay district, because it ends up being redundant, and if it's not worded exactly right, we may not be in alignment with the state. By not having it, we are in alignment with the state, so.
And if they amend it, we change with it. That's.
Correct, right, because the RSA already gives the municipalities the authority
Correct.
to enforce that section.
I think you should read number 3 again. Understands.
Clear as mud.
That's right. Come on, Drew.
All right. Any other, any questions from the board on any of those?
We would love to have public involvement another year. Come sit in the meetings and we'll gladly talk to you.
Yeah, please. Right?
And if you guys can schedule the public hearing and a snow date.
How about the next?
Which is
I
normally,
thought we did, didn't we?
which is normally the December.
Right.
Normally the December
So
meeting.
December 19 would be the 3rd Tuesday. So let's just bump it one night later. That be possible?
So
Get the calendar. As we get to worry, the selectmen will be right in the throes of budget and we don't want to interrupt that at all.
So the tentative snow date that I put as a place marker would be the following night, which would be December
20th.
20th.
Okay. So we have it.
Yep.
Get the first class mail.
Yes, Mr. Chair.
All right. Next on our agenda. Old business. So letter dated July 31 from Calvin Guilty Trust owner I Grove Park 5. Thank you. Lot subdivision, outstanding conditions. So I did see that letter. I put everything out of order here. So you have you have notified them of all of the requirements that we just talked about that in order to get them caught back up.
Correct. So the reason why this letter is on the agenda again tonight, is I've heard from the, property owner's real estate agent that I believe that he's interested in possibly selling the subdivision. But there are still conditions that still need to be met. So I was unsure on how to move forward with this. I wanted some guidance from the board as to, what should I do next? I haven't heard directly from the property owner. It's just his real estate agent, so,
I'm not gonna vote on this, but I heard from him last night.
yeah.
He is under the impression that he can do everything. So I think the best thing to do is send him a letter showing what his deficiencies were, and I told him to,
That's what the letter is.
Sent in the end of July.
yeah, well, I think his, I don't have it here. I don't know why I don't. Anyway,
So it's not
that,
an
I
approved
don't have it.
subdivision.
It,
There are still several conditions that he needs to meet.
Look at
And
the
I've
back
passed this
shoulder.
by town council to just ensure these are at least the minimums.
So it really is not an approved.
he could not transfer properties yet.
Right.
I know, townhouse, farmhouse land development, he was the here on it. Have all those inspections, Jess?
I'm unsure. I haven't really had a chance to dive into this whole thing yet, because I don't know how to move forward with it yet.
No, I think we've notified them of, 5 outlying requirements and, there's nothing more that needs to be done at this stage of the game. The next move is theirs.
He questions whether the as-built was on his, approval. And I told him, I said, well, get your approval out and take a peek at it. If it's there, you gotta do it.
So, back in July, so pretty much throughout the months of June and July, I put together a 16-page chronology of the entire case file. Wow. To include everything that took place. And I sent it to him. It's in great detail. And summarized,
So
these are the things that need to be done in order to move forward.
okay, I agree. We don't, he has his marching orders.
Yeah. Yep. Thank you, Jessica, for doing that.
Yeah. And maybe if you just want to drop another one in the mail, saying, in case you lost the first one, here's another. It hasn't changed. You know, I mean.
I don't know, it's $1 a page.
Yeah.
Well, it's 50 cents for everybody else. Boris.
All right, under new business, approval of the, meeting minutes from October 17. So I noticed on line 33 that we must not have been speaking into our microphones.
Had to be you.
It's very possible. We're trying to do a recall here as to who approved the agenda as amended. Made the motion and who seconded?
Yeah, I'm sure I made them.
Yeah, I mean, Scott, you are the likely candidate
I know.
for the motion.
Probably guilty as charged.
Anybody have a recollection of seconding that motion? I know it passed unanimously. So can we put down seconded by Mumbles?
I
No,
would say it was Bill.
I'm getting confused. I mean, I'll.
right.
Mr. Chair, before we move any further, I want, like to go back up to line 16. It was not
No,
there
you were
that
not
night.
there. No.
That's right.
I won't do that again.
So just strike line 16 in its entirety.
Yes. Actually, and I'd like to change, line 23, if I may. Warren Carr is here, but I think Lauren Carr may have been.
Recall him being here. Not his other brother. I didn't see anything else in the body of this, that I
The
questioned.
detail that I saw was line 96 should say there. Paramount to the case, he stated that the area was over excavated and there are a lot of wetlands in the area.
Any other comments from the board?
Mr. Chairman, I'll move to approve the October 17, 23 minutes as amended.
I'll second them.
Motion by Scott, seconded by Bill.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Any against? He abstains.
Mr. Chairman, I abstain. I was absent for the meeting.
I will abstain as well.
Thank you. So, Tom and, Doug abstaining. Right, correspondence for the board's review and discussion. Item number A has been continued. Item number B, board to approve the release of funds for the Christian Camps and Conference Center.
So,
Everything's
Mr. Chair, that would just be a motion. Their drainage review is completed. In fact, there's a set of plans downstairs in the
So.
office for you to
Sorry,
sign. So it's just a motion to release the $55, I believe it is.
$55?
$55.
Wow. Mr. Chairman, I'll move for Christian camps and conferences to release their $55.
Motion by Scott, we have a second.
Second,
By Doug. Discussion. Those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Any? All right, and then we added C, the letter from. read my old writing.
Stormwater. Oh, Post.
So, Mr. Chair, I did a bit of research in this area. So that the Happy Acres subdivision was in the 1970s.
Off 28A. Wow.
yeah,
That's Austin Curtis's subdivision.
Yeah, and then there was a further subdivision of that area in
Probably by Cavalieri.
1979. So I don't think this issue is directly related from a subdivision approval. I think the request is in general asking the planning board to review existing regulations. The stormwater management ordinance lives out of the zoning ordinance.
Yeah, but we gotta look at 1977, don't we?
Yep.
Gosh, who has that?
So I understand, Jessica, you're saying it's a request, you think the letter is requesting what?
is requesting the planning board to sort of review their regulations to ensure that issues with stormwater don't keep occurring like they've been experiencing.
I don't see why we would do that because we're not wetland scientists, we're not engineers, we're none of that. So how could we effectively give someone an opinion?
Right, so if the board chose to address some changes to the existing ordinance, that obviously would include hiring out an engineer to review
Right.
all of
And
that
I
to
presume
ensure changes
A
are
homeowner
appropriate.
is probably someone that might be having a problem with this. So I don't think in a subdivision that's approaching 50 years old, you know, why we should open the can of worms and do that. If someone has a problem with what it was done wrong, if they want to do that themselves and say, this is what I came up with, and it's factual, then I don't know where we go with that.
Right, because our existing ordinance already prohibits additional water runoff than what was existing prior to construction. So it's difficult to pinpoint exactly what construction is causing that additional runoff
Very good
if it's
point.
not addressed as it's happening. So if that's just sort of, you know, kind of left to the wayside and then there's more construction and more construction.
Someone could
Now it's
construct a home.
difficult to say, where is that exactly coming from? Who do I go talk to? Who gets addressed to, you know, fix that?
I think it was the culvert. I mean, the way I read this letter, I mean, it sounds like it was the state and the culverts that were put in on Route 28A that are causing the problems.
Well, I'm not sure. I mean, the other thing that we can't lose sight of here is that this was an exceptional rain season. I mean, this summer was unbelievable. And there are sections of roads that washed out that never should have ever washed out, and yet they did. And I think that, you know, jumping up because of one or two extraordinary rain events that affect a single or two or three homeowners, I'm not sure would be appropriate for this board or to spend the town's money doing that. I'm not sure.
I think I know exactly where this is, and these people. I'm gonna put my words very carefully here. Were built adjacent to two recent builds. There was a brook down through that property, and I'm not sure if it was moved on or whatever. But this person, their asphalt, their driveway washed out 3 feet deep. Full width of their driveway. I have family that lived up in Happy Acres and I'd never seen that, but seen 140 washout twice.
Well, I mean, I'm just a little further up 28A and I watched the water coming out of a culvert there like it was being blown out of a 4-foot diameter fire
Cascade
hose.
Brook one was wild.
It was crazy. And yeah, I mean, it was an extraordinary event. So,
The way I read the letter, I mean, I agree that I don't think this is something. It
And-
seems to me it's with the state that they have an issue with their image.
Seems to me Mother Nature's the problem.
Yeah, but we need to be careful as a board because of the people involved. I
but,
leave it at that.
well, I think, I don't. I have benefit of not knowing any of the people involved. But I mean, my take on this is that, again, this is an extraordinary event. If they're concerned about the culverts being undersized at 28A, then maybe they should be.
This is on the
consulting
high
with the
side
state.
of 28A, so a 28A culvert not affect this property whatsoever. Whether it's getting rid of property water away from their property on the low side, but where their driveway was washed out, no 28A culvert would handle that.
Yeah, I think I know this driveway.
I'm sure you've seen it. You probably went, wow, when you went by.
Yes. Yeah, first 20 or 30 times I went by, it was still a wow.
Yeah.
But yeah, and I mean, as we know, there are things that happen on roads in this town that were a lot worse.
Right.
So I appreciate her concern and her wishes that we assist, but I don't see that it's in our purview to assist in this. The board
Oh, yeah.
generally agree with that statement or agree?
Agreed.
Looking down the line?
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Next item on the agenda, correspondence for the board's information field observation report.
Yeah, I just, so we skipped over to B.
Oh, you're right, we did.
And pretty much for A and B are just for your information anyways.
Yeah.
That's, you can read at your leisure.
Okay, so let's jump back. I'm sorry, you're right. Under two B, which was the review of the RFP submissions for town engineer consulting services. Jessica had included in our package a little spreadsheet of fees that they were proposing. Thank you. Keep stealing my mic and you don't give it back. So the, when are we getting more mics? Yeah. We currently have, KV Partners and Tie and Bond, right?
Yep.
And, I don't recall what their rates were last year. I assume, I think KV said they held their rates. I'm
Looks like
not
KV's
mistaken.
held their rates for a long time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Compared to everybody else.
Don't want to lose them.
And KV's been, I mean, I don't think there's been any complaints
Nope.
at all in town for their services. Tie and Bond, certainly have, performed, and we can see that, as rates go, they're right in there with the lower end of the rest of the high guys.
Yep. No.
I mean, I would make a motion that we retain our current town engineers or renew their contracts for KV Partners and Tie and Bond.
And I'll second that, but I'd like to amend it.
Okay,
I would like to use KV Partners as the primary engineer unless there's a conflict or something that they can't handle, then move it over to Titan Bond. You have a responsibility to the public to work and find out something that's in their best interest. Because I don't know if everybody has done this. I have paid more to review a property than I did to engineer a property, and that's wrong. So that's my motion. I
So
amend
just
the
a
motion.
question to that. What's the procedure determining whether we use KV or Tie and Bond?
I think traditionally it's been alternating,
Correct.
Oh,
so it's kind of
okay.
luck of the draw.
Yep.
I don't know if that is something that is clearly spelled out anywhere. You, Jessica?
Mr. Chairman,
Sorry.
we have a motion with no second, so we shouldn't discuss it until second.
Thank you.
I'll second it.
Now
As
we can
amended?
discuss it as amended.
So it's stated in the RFP.
Yeah. I think if KV Partners can do it, we'll do it. If they say this is either above there or they're too busy, then we switch it over.
So, Mr. Chair, when the RFP went out, the request was the town of Alton will be contracting with 2 consulting engineers who will be assigned to review the items listed below in the scope of services on a rotating basis as tracked by the planning department. So this is all based upon a rotating basis, not a one or the other. It's
Maybe we
tough.
should renotice
May-
it and say
may I
this
just
is
add-
policy.
It's tough to beat KV Partners in their price. They work out of their home, so they don't have any operating, their operating budget is very low. So his numbers are just hard to beat throughout the entire state. Just wanted to point that out.
Have there been any issues with responsiveness?
No, he's been good.
No, he's actually worked for the town now for about 10 years.
Yeah.
So I think the point that Jessica was trying to make there is that we presented or requested these proposals based on the applicant's understanding that it is a rotation. So it's every other, assignment that comes out. And that may change the second person's decision on how they want to bill us if they know that they're just going to be sitting on the bench.
Exactly.
But $125 difference an hour, I feel we have a fiduciary responsibility to the public. That's who we represent, is to save them any money that they can, especially where we have never had a problem with KV Partners. And we've never had a problem with Time Bond. I have no problem with them. But $125 an hour's worth is something that we should watch out for our public.
And I think having a primary, the person that knows that they're always going to be the first one asked, do you have time and availability to do this? That also creates somewhat of a risk, I think, for developers and builders as well to sway the field. I think the
How would they
rotation.
sway the field?
Well, there could be overly friendly relationships developed where with the rotation, you don't know who you're getting. So I think that there's a little bit of truth and honesty in that.
Plus,
Very little.
there's also the issue if it's a small outfit and someone has health in, all of a sudden you're without any fallback position. as
Well, we're not saying that we don't want to hire them.
Yeah, but I think I come back to whether Time Bond would stay with those rates is,
Well, no,
So-
if we don't ask him.
Excuse me, Mr. Chair. So what you're really looking at, so the costs for KV Partners is that 105. Because Mike is the principal. So when we work with Time Bond, we don't work directly with the principal, who is at $230 an hour. We work with the senior consultant, which is Dana Huff, and he lives right here in Alton. Their agreement, which in their proposal, they would like to continue the prior agreement, which is since Dana lives here in Alton, they don't charge for mileage. So that's a decrease in in invoicing. So you're really looking at a difference of 105 and 175, so difference of $70. Principal rarely gets involved.
you
And
have
he
any sense
states,
of the annual
he states
spend?
that in his submission.
You have a sense of the annual spend we're doing between the two firms? Aggregates?
That's really tough to to compare, considering it depends on the applications that come in throughout the year.
I'm just thinking historically,
Yeah.
how big a difference are we really talking about?
Yeah, that I'm not, I'd have to crunch some numbers.
Well, I suppose we could just have admin pull up what was paid to KV Partners by a bond. It should be a fairly quick calculation to do.
I think what it comes down to is the same thing as like everything else next year. I mean,
Well, this
Yeah.
is next year. That's what we're.
well, I know,
entering
but I
into
mean, you
contract.
advertised it, like Jessica said, you advertised it for this. These are the prices they gave you for this. So we're saying, well, geez, we don't want to rotate anymore. So next year, or next time the thing goes out, take out the rotating basis.
Yeah, I gotta tell you, I'm very uncomfortable with the idea of taking out the rotation.
Well, you just
Well,
don't put it in.
Well, if I were Ty and Bob and I heard, on the bench, so to speak, all of a sudden my rates are 3 times as high now.
well, there's that, but I also think that there's a lot of benefit in not knowing who your
Disappointing.
engineer is gonna be. It's a luck of a draw and yeah, it's gonna cost you 70 or 80% more for one firm over the others, but you take the one, it's like getting bids. You throw out your high and your low. Hopefully you have at least 3 bids. And you throw out your high and your low, and that's probably where the real number is. So KV Partners is so off the charts low. It's like you can't use that as a basis of comparison as to what the real world numbers are when you're seeing these other numbers that are 130 to 235, 230, or 140 to 220. They're all right in the same world, and then you've got 105 thrown in there.
We'll tell you what, let's invite Dana in and see if we can negotiate a better rate for the taxpayer.
Yeah, I wondered about that.
Say that again slowly.
I didn't think I was that fast. Why don't we have Dana Huff come in and try to negotiate a different fee? It's you, Raj.
We certainly could do that. I hope everybody in this board understands you're never going to be seeing these kind of rates that
Absolutely,
KV has.
absolutely.
So,
Absolutely.
and I think we did negotiate down from last time we brought him in. I think we did negotiate his rates down already.
Correct. And then they went and added the no mileage. They're out of Portsmouth,
This was
So-
Ty and Bonders.
Yeah.
right? They're out of Portsmouth, so mileage could rack up rather rapidly.
And I just come back to what the historical spend has been. Some general benchmark here.
That's hard to do.
Yeah, but are we talking about $10,000 in a year or, 1,000 or whatever?
Oh.
But I do agree that I think we need 2
I
firms to be
like
able
to have 2 as well, but I mean, we have a relation duty
Yeah,
to protect the applicant to a degree. I mean, I'm not gonna say give him the farm, but as I said it previously, I have had CMA engineers, which was a Portsmouth 101, and I had to pay more to review it than I did to engineer.
you got Drew's point counter to that. Certainty dimension.
Yep.
May I add one more comment, Mr. Chair?
Yes.
So the issue with getting rid of the rotation is, so if you have, one main person and then you have someone waiting in the wings, they're restricted from doing any work in town. So that alleviates them these opportunities to be able to have work. They may never get called upon. So they're just restricted from working in a town that they might not even ever work in throughout 1 year, 2 year, however long the contracts are good for. So I just wanted to point that out.
Technically, wouldn't you have to change the RFP again?
Correct. The process would be done all over again, and then we wouldn't sort of be back on track to have a January contract, which was part of the goal.
I call us to invite him in and try to negotiate. And did we negotiated last year? No, nothing says we can't renegotiate this year.
These rates up from what they were billing? When this rates are in.
Yeah, because if he has the same rates he had last year, there's no sense in talking about it.
Right. Nothing in there. I saw on rates.
Well, we're doing, good question.
I don't really see a big difference in some of them. There's a couple of them that changed.
Yeah, I'm seeing that the senior engineer rate went up $5. And
Where are you
the,
seeing that?
Oh,
we're comparing it to their previous contract.
Okay.
And the project engineer rate went up $10 an hour. But all others appear to be the same. Right? No, that's right.
relatively modest in this day of
Environment.
inflation.
Yeah.
Either of those people get used, said in the beginning. Bulk of the work that's done by both of them is done by the principal.
No,
No, other way around.
yeah,
The other way around.
yep.
Yeah,
The senior associate consultant, that's who we use, but with AV Partners.
He's everybody.
He's it.
He wears all the
He
hats.
cleans the toilet too.
Mr. Chairman, may I ask a question then about scope? To read through this, I might as well ask.
Sure. Yep.
I've spent the afternoon on this. Yeah, I don't have much better to do in my. Yeah, when I look through KV Partners, it's stuck with me that they have a different scope here. And one of the things that they do is they produce a construction estimate, which I didn't see in any of the other.
They all
bids.
do.
They all do.
They all
That's what I was gonna.
Yep.
That's the answer.
Okay, so I had made a motion and then you had amended that motion.
Correct,
That had been seconded.
by Roger, yep.
There has been discussion regarding that, and just so we're clear that your motion is to make KB the primary and make Ty and Bond secondary and to eliminate the rotation. Is that correct?
That was correct,
Okay.
Technically, you can't do that.
because of the RFP. So I should probably withdraw my motion if he'll withdraw his second.
Okay, so those motions second are withdrawn. So I will reinstate my motion, which is to contract with KV Partners and Ty and Bond on a rotational basis for next year based on the presentations.
I will second.
Seconded by Doug. Any more discussion?
So just to clarify, so that would be for the year 2024. So you want one year?
I think those were 1-year proposals.
Yep. So I just wanted to
Yes.
clarify that.
All right. Still a second. Still a motion. All those in favor? Aye. Any opposed? None. All right.
Fussy's got this.
Um,
Hey, Fussy sounds.
and then the correspondence for the boards.
Trying to figure out what's behind that.
So correspondence for the board's information included the field observation report from Dana Huff. And you guys with me?
We are.
All right.
Got with you, Drew.
And the letter dated November 1 received from David Fuller, request for final road approval on Dobbin Way, Dobbins Brook subdivision.
So he'll be coming in soon.
All right. Is there any other business to come before the board?
Mr. Chairman? A motion to adjourn, please?
Oh,
Oh, you were saying something?
You just coming up again with a.
Okay, come on up. I'll hold off on that. Go ahead, Lauren.
I haven't accepted.
I thought you were running home by getting up.
I think 28A is a strange road. I think isn't it just easements all along there that
Maybe
the,
right.
state doesn't really own that property? I don't know if that has anything to do with the water issue, but I know it's something strange about that 28A.
I have no idea.
And this came up in front of the select board, right? This is this water issue with this guy? It is. Yeah. I appreciate you hearing me tonight. And yeah, I'm not knocking the CIB subcommittee, because they do a lot of work in it. So I just like you people to put your expertise in it too. Thank you.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
All right. Anything else from public? Close the public session. Jessica?
So I just wanted to share that I talked to Russ Wilder today. And he wanted to thank the board for addressing some of the items, the action items that came out of the master plan update. So he just wanted to say it was a nice follow-up to all of that work that we had done on that master plan. Just wanted to say thank you.
I didn't see that on the agenda. All right, I'll entertain that motion now.
Mr. Chairman, first of all, I'm gonna offer that I'm not a big fan of our new setup because it's hard for us to communicate as a board. So that's my
I
opinion.
agree. Oh, wait a minute. I agree.
Okay. So, and I'll move to adjourn.
Okay, we have motion to adjourn. Do I have a second?
Second.
Seconded by Doug. All right.
If you don't want a second, I'm going home
All
anyway.
all those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Don't want to hear it. Thank you.
That. Oh.